It's time for today's Face-Off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen?
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Well, Quanell, that was the White House Deputy Chief of Staff on Policy, Stephen Miller, talking to CNN's Boris Sanchez about the Trump administration rolling out various portions of the National Guard in big cities like Chicago and the Pacific Northwest, and the criticism and specifically a district court injunctive action that stopped or purported to stop some of what Trump is doing. And Stephen Miller responded with referring to Trump's plenary authority. Plenary, of course, it's a fancy term for absolute or total, right? His answer was Trump has total authority or absolute authority to do that. And he referred to a recent Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling that upheld his ability to roll out the National Guard or to federalize the National Guard in California when they were dealing with ICE-related protests. Now, that's not, it's not shocking at all, or something. Why are we talking about it on this incredibly interesting show? Why are we talking about their boring stuff? That's not the shocking part, right? The shocking part is because, of course, clearly Stephen Miller has made it clear he thinks Trump has a far expanded authority than we've seen with prior policy directors for executives. But the shocking part is how he just stopped talking, right? Now, CNN is claiming it was some sort of technical difficulty. We kind of cut it off quick in this segment. It went on for a while with Stephen Miller just sitting there. I can do a great Stephen Miller impersonation, although I think he's like 5'5" and I'm 6'8". We're both bald, pasty white dudes, so I'll do an impersonation. And nothing came out. It did not look like he was continuing to talk, and it was user error, like when you screw up your microphone and we have to redo this stuff. It looks like that it was simply just something in his ear saying, "Shut up, Stephen Miller." Now, I don't know who's on top. I don't know who has that authority, right? Other than Donald Trump, it seems like Stephen Miller is the one kind of running the show for policy. So I'm not sure that someone could be in it. Maybe he decided he shouldn't have gone that far, or maybe there was real technical difficulty. But there's a couple other interesting points before I throw it to you. One, that segment of the clip was not included in the portions of the interview published online by CNN. And there's no real answer. So the thought is possibly that Miller went too far and said, "Oh, Donald Trump has total authority." And the real truth is, and I'm going to say my favorite term in federal legislation, the Posse Comitatus Act, or I like to say the Posse Comitatus Act, which of course limits and has for many, many decades the ability, century even, the ability of a president to use the military on citizens. So it's not absolute authority. It's controlled. What do you think happened with Stephen Miller, Quanah?
I believe that Mr. Miller, Charles, let out of his mouth something that he was not supposed to. And if he could take it back, he would take it back. Because what he spoke, speaking of President Trump's powers, it only speaks to that what men like myself and others like myself have been saying, They don't view his his administration as a presidential administration. It's viewed as a regime. It's viewed as a dictator. He sees Donald Trump as a king, as a dictator with absolute power that does not have to answer to any federal courts, that was openly speak. Mr. Miller and others, Pam Bondi and others, will speak about ignoring federal judges, will speak about ignoring the Supreme Court and call them activist courts. And so he believes in his mind that they have reinterpreted or somewhat rewritten the U.S. Constitution to give President Trump dictator-like power. And trust me, the quote-unquote founding fathers of this nation never wanted a president to act with the power of a king, to act with the power of a dictator, like an Iranian supreme leader. That's not what they set up with our Constitution in this country. But I've been saying this. This man is going to do his best to rewrite the Constitution or usurp it and redefine it in the mindset that's approval to his MAGA base. This country is in trouble, Charles. I don't like where we're going. We were never supposed to use the Insurrection Act on people who are protesting and exercising the constitutional right to protest political positions, political policies, statements, and language of a sitting president. They're using terrorism acts now to go after common little white boys and white girls in America. Let me tell you why I say that. They've labeled Antifa as a terrorist organization now, and they're planning the Insurrection Act for them and others like them. Antifa is not black and brown people. The majority of Antifa membership, that movement, is suburban raised little white children. And I'm telling America, look at the protests in front of these ICE facilities. You don't see a contingency of black people. You don't even see a contingency of large numbers of Hispanics. You see more whites. I'm warning America, this man is not just coming after people of color. He's going after any white young voices or white voices, period, that disagree with him. I'm afraid where we're going, Charles, because all the indicators and the signs are there that we're headed towards serious trouble and civil unrest in this country.
I mean, look, I would disagree with Stephen Miller and his statement about Trump's absolute authority to use the National Guard when directed at American citizens. But again, you've been shouting about how the end is coming, the sky is falling, America's awful for decades now. I think you're being absurd. I think we should have a real talk about how far the president can go in his use of federal authorities on civilians and United States citizens. However, as we saw in Washington, D.C., he had a massive success that was ultimately, although derided by many Democrat politicians, ultimately praised by the mayor, the Democrat mayor of the district, for saving lives. And there weren't murders in D.C. for a couple of weeks when we have murders every day in a town that has been blighted by crime. There have been some good results. There have also been some bad results. I've heard conflicting accounts of the apartment complex we discussed being emptied out in Chicago. I have heard conflicting accounts about the siege that Antifa organizations, and Antifa, it's just like when you say MAGA, oh, MAGA, as if it's some great giant organization, which is not. Antifa, there are Antifa groups, right, that use like the Rose City, whatever, that use the term Antifa, and some of those groups have very clearly used those for the ends of terrorism. And we had to listen to the ADL and the Biden administration tell us for years, although they're not terrorists, they're not organizations, they're not structured enough, but refer to MAGA and January 6th. And if you'll remember, parents concerned about their kids in school during COVID, Christians, all kind of people have been referred to as terrorists or radical people by both the ADL and the Biden administration. That's just absolutely obscene. There are very clearly militarized, terror-focused Antifa groups. I think second only to radical Islam groups in
You
the
say
United States. It's
militarize?
a danger. I'm sorry?
Antifa don't have no military weapons. Antifa don't have the money nor
I'm
the
sorry.
support
You
of a
you
third
haven't
world
seen
country
you haven't seen
where they have military
Antifa
style
organizations
weapons.
running around in ballistic helmets with spears and weapons
Charles, you can
and
buy those
beating up
helmets
and
at any
attacking
military surplus
opposing
store. You
voices.
can
Like
order
I've
those that
seen it.
same equipment
I think
online.
everybody's seen it. But hey, let's focus on this interview with Stephen Miller, right? It's getting a lot of attention in the media. We're here talking about it on Fox Soul. Okay, but what's not being talked about, like Jay Jones, the attorney general candidate for the Democratic Party in Virginia, it was just exposed as wishing death, not only on just an opponent, the former Speaker of the House when he was in the House in Virginia, his children as well, wishing that they would die so they could get policy change. The Democrats have not done anything about that. They haven't pulled his
And that's
candidacy.
awful. And that's
Okay.
wicked. That's evil.
Right.
No
Well, here,
matter
but
what
no
your
one's
political
talking about
affiliation
it
is.
on the federal, on the national level. Katie Porter, a gubernatorial candidate, a Democrat from California, former congresswoman, now looking to follow Newsom in the governor's seat. She was giving an interview with investigative journalist last week, where she shut it down because she does not want to have an unhappy experience. In other words, there's another woman asking her about policy, right? I think that's far more concerning that we have politicians this day and age that don't think they should have an unhappy experience and have to explain bad policy.
But maybe
while
she shut
Stephen
it
Miller
down
clearly
because she did
said
not
something
want to
stupid.
partake in a set-up hit job interview. Donald Trump before has shut down some interviews. Republican congressmen and senators also have walked out of some interviews. Maybe she saw that it was a hit job set-up interview, and no matter what
It
she
was
said,
an
it would be
interview
edited,
that had
it
been
would be
done with
twisted,
every other
and it
candidate
made
with
to make her look other than what she
questions
really
given
is.
to her in advance, and they'd
All
already
those
talked to
politicians,
7
Charles,
other
play that
candidates
same
who
game.
answered the questions. This is the new absurdity, right? Where we don't talk about, like, we don't talk about here on this show or anywhere on the national space. We don't talk about this. Well, I mean, because he's an African American Democrat candidate for attorney general, so we don't talk about the fact that he literally said he hopes that a Republican's children were killed so they can achieve some gun reform.
Why did you not submit it for us to talk about and debate on this
Because
show?
I know what's going to happen.
No,
right?
we
So I'm
talk
bringing
about
it up
that.
now.
No. We
Right?
talk
This
about
is
that,
the
brother.
truth. That in the
Because as a
national
black
scale,
man,
we have to grab stuff. I mean, look, I don't like Stephen
as a
Miller.
black
I'm not
man,
a
I would
Republican.
condemn
But
that.
this is
As a black man, I would condemn
topic,
it.
right? He said something stupid and stopped talking. Who cares?
Because a man's family is off limits. Politicians
I think
don't have a right to
Jay
attack
Jones
children.
also said he wanted Todd Gilbert to die. His exact quotes were, if I
But
had two
leave his
bullets,
family
if
alone.
I had 2 bullets and I was with Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, and Todd Gilbert, I would shoot Gilbert twice. It's insane that he's still a candidate to be the top cop of Virginia, right?
But
And it's
Charles,
insane
you
that
have
national media
Republicans
isn't
that
talking
have
about it.
said things equally worse. You've got Republicans that
Wait,
have
what
said some
about it?
outlandish, crazy madness
Yeah,
type
he
things.
said this in typing.
But that's why.
He typed this to another politician.
But that's why I
It's
told you,
exposed.
Charles, we need a third party in America. We need a third party because the two-party system in America is not only dividing this country, it's destroying this country. We need a third party to bring balance back to American politics. And if we don't, both parties are leading America straight to hell with our eyes wide open.
See, I don't think a third party is a feasible solution. I mean, there's too many lemmings in this country, right? What we need is to start demanding that when fragile little egos like Katie Porter refuse to finish an interview, or a politician like Jay Jones says crazy stuff, or a politician like Stephen Miller says crazy stuff, right? Like saying that Trump has absolute authority to use the military on civilians in the United States.
We need a third party. We must have a third party.
We just need to stop tolerating the extremists.
Multiple cars just making their way south to Thibodaux, coming from Battery. At some point in time, you're going to see the collision, which we're going to know is vehicle number 2 from oncoming traffic colliding with the vehicle of Mr. Hall. You will see another vehicle come to a stop, and then you'll see Kyron Lacey come to a stop.
That's that green car there, the green one seen at the end. Lacey's lawyer says he was more than 70 yards away from the crash when it happened. Now, the state police, they are putting out their own video today. This video, look at this. You can see Lacey's green Charger right here. Police say he drove illegally in the wrong lane when other cars swerved out of the way, allegedly leading to the crash. Here's what one witness said, according to this new video.
Did you see a green Charger flying that way? A green Charger that going that way? There was a green Charger. There was a green Charger that caused all this. SRT8, he caused all that. He went to pass the park way back this way. The green Charger collided with these cars, or he went right into it.
NBC News reached out to Lacey's attorney, but we haven't yet heard back. I want to go to George Solis now, and this is a story that has raised a lot of questions with civil rights groups and more. The state's attorney general is now out with a new statement today, also backing up police, right?
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. What you have here is obviously a tale of two very different narratives. This all comes very quickly after Lacey's attorney put out that video package, essentially trying to say that Kyron Lacey was not at fault during this crash. Now, he never disputed that Mr. Lacey did go into the oncoming traffic lane, but again, the claim there was that he was a...
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, that was a news story coming out of Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, involving a very well-known and successful LSU football player, Kyron Lacey, who took his own life here in Texas, in the Houston area, and having another run-in with a family member, and police were called, and he was already suffering from stress tremendously of losing his football career, losing his scholarship, being kicked off the team, being charged with a crime that he never committed. And when you watch the video, the wreck had already taken place. The accident that killed Mr. Herman had already taken place. He comes at the end of it, never hit a single car, but to avoid everything, he went in the other lane to avoid the wreck himself, but he did not cause the wreck. He was not involved in the wreck. Then you watch a video of the state trooper going to witnesses, coaching witnesses, actually telling witnesses to put things in a report that they themselves did not see. We just watched the video here where the man said, oh, the charger caused all of that. Well, there's two separate videos that show Mr. Lacey's vehicle had absolutely nothing to do with the wreck. The wreck had already taken place. And now this young man's life has been completely destroyed, lost all of his NIL deals, was on his way to be a first-round draft choice. But because a trooper did not do his job, in fact, told people to lie, put that young man under a charge and the amount of stress that caused him to take his own life. That's a damn shame. That trooper should be fired.
You know, I think that Lacey's attorney did a really good job putting together a package and releasing statements in an effort to exonerate Lacey, because I assume that they are going to pursue a civil rights action and seek a significant amount of damages from Louisiana taxpayers for the decision making by both the state police and the state attorney's office. But recently, today or yesterday, I think it was today, the state police released further evidence, and the Attorney General Liz Murrill also made a statement completely backing the investigation by the state police. I'll point out a couple things. So one video that we saw of the coaching was a trooper talking to a witness saying, hey, you need to put this in there, put this, completely inappropriate, right? But what the videos that we saw one clip of, there are a number of videos that were all immediate interviews in the immediate aftermath of just talking to people when the first responders were just arrived on scene trying to figure out what happened. Everyone was saying it was the Charger's fault. So then you ask, well, how? If you see the Charger arrive after the fact, how would the Charger cause the accident? Now, in Louisiana, it is very common when you're driving between small towns. Like, I lived in Ville Platte and went to school to play ball in Opelousas for a while, then went back to school in Ville Platte after growing up in Austin before high school. But so I have some familiarity and with Highway 29 and passing other cars, and you do that when it's broken. It's just something very common. It is not, however, common and illegal when you have a double stripe or a single solid stripe, and it's not very common in neighborhoods or inside towns like this incident happened. But more importantly, if you look at the first responder videos, what people are saying is that first of all, there's clear evidence that Kyron was passing people recklessly prior to this incident. He passed 4 people in a no passing zone at a very high rate of speed. But what they're saying is that he was in a lane of oncoming traffic, and that the person driving at him was forced to swerve, thus causing the entire accident. And I hate to say it, right? But it looks like that, in fact, was the case. It's horrible. I don't think he should have, the whole thing's heartbreaking. And I think there should have been a
94 yards behind the wreck. He was 94 yards behind the wreck. The wreck had taken place already, and he was 94 yards behind the wreck.
If you have a car coming at another car at a high rate of speed on a highway, right, and that car thinks he's about to get in a head-on
The video
collision,
shows he was not speeding. The video shows him driving like this.
Well, that was after the wreck. You know what you do when you see a big wreck? You press the pedal that's next to the gas pedal called the brake.
That's not what it shows.
I'm sorry, but you're just not being honest, Quanell. And it's heartbreaking. I think the whole thing's a tragedy.
He didn't slam on his brakes. He just slowed down.
It appears that he was driving recklessly, and people took evasive action to avoid him that led to the collision. Now, the question is, does that make it his fault? I don't know. Okay. Again, there's the thing. A lot of people think when a lawyer comes up and presents something, right? Like you see this, we've got a death row, an execution about to happen. So you're seeing a lot of posts on social media from the attorneys of the person that's about to be killed. So you're all this argument for innocence, right? But again, that's advocacy. This is his lawyer making his best case. And the truth is that the case being presented by the Attorney General's office in Louisiana is very, very clear that people, every witness in the immediate aftermath said this car was driving crazy and it caused the accident.
You and I both know
that's a problem.
You and I both know
and they were people of color saying it. So
you and I both know that eyewitness testimony is some of the most suspect testimony in the midst of a situation, an incident, a traumatic experience. Eyewitness testimony is not always reliable. In fact, the U.S. Supreme